It's 9:47 on a Sunday night, and you're sitting at your kitchen table with a Zillow listing open on your laptop. $400,000. 4 beds, 2 baths, good school district, and right there at the top of the listing, in bold green letters, it says, solar panels included. You feel something shift. That sounds like a smart move. That sounds like savings. That sounds like you're getting ahead of the energy bill before it even starts. So you screenshot the listing, send it to your partner, and you both agree. This is the one. Here's what nobody tells you in that moment. That $400,000 house is not a $400,000 house. It never was. And the solar panels, the feature you're celebrating, those are going to be one of the most expensive parts of the deal. Not because solar is a bad technology, but because of how the deal was structured before you ever saw that listing. By the end of this video, you will see that $400,000 number completely differently, and you will never look at a solar included listing the same way again. My name is Elena, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart, financially responsible people end up paying $120,000 more than they planned, and how it happens in decisions that feel like wins. If you've ever stood in front of a home that felt like a great deal and later wondered where all the money went, subscribe and hit the bell because this video is exactly about that. And before we get into it, not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. This is math, and math doesn't care about your feelings. Let's start with the number everyone sees, $400,000. On a 30-year fixed mortgage at 7.1%, which is close to where rates have been sitting, your monthly payment is $2,682. That's principal and interest. You feel okay about that number. You've run it. You've budgeted it. It fits. But that's not your actual monthly payment. Here's what the full number looks like. Property taxes in the average U.S. metro, $450/month. Homeowners insurance, $175/month. HOA fees, if the neighborhood has them, $150, $300/month. Let's call it $200. Private mortgage insurance, if your down payment was under 20%, another $150. We're now at $3,657 per month. And we haven't touched the solar panels yet. $3,657 per month times 12 equals $43,884 per year. Over 30 years, that's $1,316,520. That's how much a $400,000 house actually costs you in payments alone, before maintenance, before repairs, before the solar lease you didn't read closely enough. Sit with that. Now, let's talk about the solar panels. Because here's where the listing starts lying to you. Not with false numbers, but with incomplete ones. Meet the Ramirezes. Combined household income, $118,000 a year. Take home after federal and state taxes, roughly $7,900 a month. They are not irresponsible people. They did exactly what they were told to do. They saved a 10% down payment. $40,000. They got pre-approved, they found a house with solar panels and thought, this is how we get ahead. What they didn't read, what almost nobody reads, is page 14 of the disclosure package. The solar panels on that house were not owned by the seller. They were leased through a 25-year agreement with a solar financing company. And when the Ramirezes bought the house, they didn't just buy the house, they assumed the lease. Here's what that lease said. $187 per month, escalating at 2.9% per year, locked in for 25 years with a $15,000, $22,000 buyout clause if they ever want to terminate early. Year 1, $187/month. Sounds fine. Year 10, $243 month. Year 20, $316/month. Year 25, $361/month. Total lease payments over 25 years, $67,400. That's before the escalation clauses. That's before the $500, $900 inverter replacement they'll need around year 12. And that's before the $3,200 roof warranty issue that voids coverage if solar panels are installed by a third party. Let me say that again. $67,400 for a system they don't own. On a roof that now has a warranty gap, attached to a house they're already paying $1.3 million to own. That's not a feature. That's a liability that came dressed as a benefit. The Ramirezes are not stupid. They make $118,000 a year. They saved $40,000. They did the responsible thing. The trap doesn't discriminate based on income or intelligence. It works because of incomplete information delivered at exactly the moment when you most want to believe the deal is good. Here's where I need you to stay with me, because the second half of this video is where the math starts doing something genuinely strange. We've talked about the lease, but the lease is only the first layer. There are two more costs embedded in that $400,000 number that almost nobody is running. And when you see them, the $520,000 figure stops feeling like an exaggeration. Before I continue, I know someone in the comments is already drafting a response. It goes something like this: but solar saves you money on your electricity bill. You're ignoring the savings. That argument is not wrong. A properly sized, owned solar system, keyword, owned, can reduce or eliminate an electricity bill that averages $142/month nationally, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Over 25 years, that's a genuine $42,600 in avoided costs, plus some homes generate credits on net metering programs. Here's what that argument assumes. It assumes the system is sized correctly for the home. It assumes you're in a state with favorable net metering laws, which 17 states have now weakened or eliminated since 2020. It assumes the panels perform at rated capacity for the full 25 years, which degrades at roughly 0.5% per year, meaning by year 25, you're at about 87% efficiency. And it assumes you own the system outright, which the Ramirezes do not. When you subtract the lease payments from the electricity savings on a leased system, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory found that the average solar lease customer saves between $10 and $30 per month in net electricity costs. Not $142, $10 to $30. $20/month average net savings times 12 months times 25 years equals $6,000 in electricity savings, against $67,400 in lease payments. The math is not close. The real answer here, as it almost always is knowing what you're actually buying before you sign. So why do people keep falling for this? Why did the Ramirezes, smart, financially capable people, not catch the lease on page 14? Because of something behavioral economists call feature bundling bias. When a product has a visible, desirable feature, solar panels, a renovated kitchen, a backup generator, buyers mentally add that feature to the asset column of their purchase without interrogating the liability column attached to it. The Ramirezes saw $400,000 plus solar panels. Their brain registered $400,000 house and a free green energy upgrade. The actual ledger was $400,000 house plus a 25-year financial obligation from a third party. A study published in the Journal of Marketing Research found that consumers consistently underestimate ongoing subscription and lease costs relative to one-time purchase prices by an average of 40%. We are neurologically wired to anchor to the sticker price, not the total cost of ownership. The solar financing industry understood this before most buyers did. That's why the lease model became the default product in the early 2010s. Not because it's better for the homeowner, because it's more sellable than the truth. Would you like to take on a 25-year financial contract with escalating payments as part of your home purchase? Nobody would say yes to that sentence, but tens of thousands of people said yes to solar panels included. The trap disguises itself as a benefit. That's not an accident. That is the product design. Let's build the honest ledger for this $400,000 house. Line by line, over 30 years, mortgage payments, principal plus interest, 7.1%, 30 years, $965,520. Property taxes, average $450/month. Escalating with assessed value, $180,000 plus. Homeowners insurance, $175/month. Escalating, $63,000 plus. HOA fees, $200/month. $72,000. PMI, years 1 to 7, $150/month. $12,600. Solar lease payments, 25 years, escalating at 2.9%. $67,400. Solar inverter replacement, year 12, $900. Roof warranty gap repair, $3,200. Standard home maintenance, 1% of home value per year, 30 years. $120,000. Total 30-year cost of ownership, approximately $1,484,620. On a house listed at $400,000, that's a multiplier of 3.7x the purchase price. And we haven't accounted for the opportunity cost of the $40,000 down payment. That $40,000 down payment, invested in an index fund at the historical average return of 7% over 30 years, compounds to $304,000. That's money that no longer exists. It's in the walls. The $520,000 figure in the title of this video is actually conservative. It refers specifically to the all-in first decade cost of this purchase. Down payment, mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, HOA, PMI, and solar lease. All money leaving the household in the first 10 years. $520,000 for a house listed at $400,000. These are not irresponsible people. They did everything right, they just didn't have the complete ledger. There's a woman named Kathy Switzer, not the marathon runner. A different Kathy Switzer, a property tax attorney in Arizona who spent 22 years helping homebuyers review disclosures after closing. She kept a folder of solar lease agreements that she called her Hall of Fame. Her most common call came from buyers 3 to 5 years into a purchase who wanted to refinance or sell their home, and discovered the solar lease was either blocking the refi because of lender restrictions or killing the sale because the new buyer didn't want to assume a 20-year-old contract with 18 years remaining. Her advice was always the same. Read the transfer clause before you sign anything. If the words assumable by buyer are in that contract, that is not your upgrade. That is your inheritance. Make sure you want to inherit it. Assumable by buyer, 4 words that turn a benefit into an obligation, and they're in most leases, in small print. On page 14, you can choose not to play this game. There is no trophy for buying the house with the most features. There is no scoreboard that shows up at 62 and says, "Congratulations, you had solar panels for 25 years and saved $6,000 net." There is no prize for the greenest house on the block if it costs you $120,000 in unanticipated obligations. What you can do: 1. If a listing says solar included, your first call is not to the realtor, it's to the title company. Ask, is this a leased system or an owned system? Those are the only 2 possible answers, and they mean completely different things. 2. If it's a lease, request the full agreement, all pages, all addenda, before you make an offer, not at closing. Before the offer. 3. If the seller wants you to assume the lease, negotiate it into the purchase price as a liability. A $67,400 obligation over 25 years has a present value of roughly $35,000, $40,000. That amount should come off the ask. 4. If the seller won't negotiate and won't buy out the lease, you are now looking at a fundamentally different asset than the one marketed to you. Price it accordingly. Or walk. The boring choice, the one that protects you, is almost always the countercultural one. In a market where everyone is racing to make offers, slowing down to read page 14 feels like a disadvantage. It is not. It is the only move that actually protects you. The Ramirezes didn't lose $120,000 in one moment. They lost it in 100 small, incomplete disclosures across a 4-month buying process. A listing that said solar included without saying solar leased. A pre-approval letter that included the lease payment in the debt-to-income calc without explaining why. A closing disclosure that listed the transferred obligation in Section 4, Paragraph 3, in the same font size as the Homeowners Association email address. The gap between what a house costs and what it's sold for doesn't open at closing. It opens every month in every payment for 25 years. What the people who catch this early discover at year 2, not year 12, is not that they're smarter or more financially sophisticated. It's that they read the full document. That's the unsexy, unshared, uninstagrammable thing that protects you. The complete ledger, every line, before you sign. That's what Kathy Switzer discovered in 22 years of practice. That's what every person who avoids this trap reports. Not that the deal was bad, but that they read it before it became theirs. If this video reframed how you see the next listing you open, drop a comment below with the one number that surprised you most. I read every one. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing math that doesn't care about your feelings. See you in the next one.